everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in the last video we talked about John Keats. We got to know that how he is describing beauty is truth and truth is beauty, how he is a Hellenic poet, the idea of negative capability, chameleon poet, egotistical sublime. These were the things which we discussed in John Keats. Before that we were reading about Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who told us about primary imagination, secondary imagination, fancy, how a poem should be, how a poet should be. Before that, Wordsworth was there, who told us that nature is everything, nature is a teacher, nature is the healer, and it is everything. So we can see the link and the connection through which it is moving. And in this video, we are going to study about the P.V. Shelley. And P.V. Shelley is the last critic of the Romantic age. After that, we will be moving towards the Victorian age of critics. So Wordsworth, Coleridge, John Keats, they were concerned about the nature of the poetry. That what is it, what it works, how it works, and where it comes from. But P.V. Shelley asks the different question. He asks that what is our future without poetry? What does poetry do to the world? What is its responsibility? What is its job? These are the type of questions which P.V. Shelley asks. And these questions are different than the three of the critics which ask. So before moving forward, before reading that what exactly is the work which P.V. Shelley wrote, we must know a little bit about P.V. Shelley. So P.V. Shelley was born in 1792 in Sussex, England. He was expelled from Oxford for writing a pamphlet defending atheism. Atheism is someone who doesn't believe in God or there is no God. That is the concept of atheism. Nastic is the word for that. He is deeply committed to the ideas of freedom, justice, and human rights. He died at the age of 29 by drowning in the year 1822. And his main work, which is related to literary criticism, is A Defense of Poetry, which was written in 1821 but was published after his death. So you may ask that what exactly is A Defense of Poetry is about. So A Defense of Poetry is about a response as an attack to poetry. Now, how does it happen? So Thomas Love Peacock was a dear friend of P.V. Shelley. They were personally in a good relation with each other. Thomas Love Peacock wrote a satirical essay which was 4 Ages of Poetry. And in that he had an idea that he was basically a follower of utilitarianism ideas. Utilitarianism is something which says that if something is useful practically, then that is useful. And if something is not in use practically, then there is no use of that such thing. So according to Thomas Love Peacock, poetry was such thing which did not have any practical value. So Thomas Love Peacock said that poetry has essentially no value at all. To which P.V. Shelley replied while writing A Defense of Poetry. And he replied that what exactly are the things that is essential, valuable, and what are the differences. So in this video, we are going to study about the points which P.V. Shelley made in response to Thomas Love Peacock's satirical essay 4 Ages of Poetry. This is the clear definition. This is a clear mind map which we are going to do in this video. Okay. So moving forward, we will go step by step analyzing that what are exactly the points which were made by P.V. Shelley against Thomas Love Peacock's idea of poetry. So the first point which P.V. Shelley puts is imagination versus reason. According to P.V. Shelley, reason is something which is a calculative risk, something which is decisive, something which is analytical. Reason is something which is found in scientific reports, scientific things, which were governed by engineers, which were made by engineers, something like that. Imagination, before that, let me tell you one more thing, that reason is something which divides things and then it reads that. It divides things first. But on the other hand, imagination is something which synthesizes things. For example, there are certain things which is scattered on the ground. Now, imagination will put these things whole together and then think that what can I make out of it? That is imagination. We can create anything through our imagination. So in these words, we can understand that we have the power of creation through imagination. And imagination, by using imagination, we are creating poetry. Reason can be used only in the scientific way, in the economic way, philosophical way, in the engineering. Their reason is the main output, reason is the main input. But in the poetry, imagination is the main thing. So according to P.V. Shelley, poetry is expression of imagination, not reason. It is saying that we are not competing that this is reason, this is imagination, and you are wrong, I am right. He says that poetry is an expression of imagination. We are not saying that you are saying these things are useful and these things are not. We are just defending that thing, that poetry is itself also useful. This was the idea which was propagated by P.V. Shelley in Imagination and Reason. The second thing was poetry and morality. Now, what does that have to do with P.V. Shelley and Thomas Lovecock? So, P.V. Shelley says that whoever reads poetry, poetry gives us enlarged vision, enlarged perspective, enlarged capacity, and from which imagination, from which poetry generates. So we can say that whoever is writing poetry, whoever is reading poetry, they are strengthening our view to look at certain things. They are enlarging our criteria. They are enlarging our boundaries of looking at certain things. So poetry is giving us that strength indirectly. And after having that thing, we are also able to have enlarged sense of empathy as well towards other people, because we have enlarged sense of perspective, enlarged views about things, then enlarged experience. So we will have empathy as well towards other people. So poetry is helping people to have empathy towards each other. So how can you say that it is not useful in the practical life? It is useful, and people are using it actually indirectly. After that, the third point which was made by P.V. Shelley was poetry strips away from familiarity. Now you may have heard about this term defamiliarization from Russian formalist, which says that when we look at the same thing from different perspective, then that is defamiliarization. Okay, so P.V. Shelley says that poets has that kind of power to make the same simple thing look different through the use of words, metaphors, imagery. That we look at the same thing with different perspective. We are, for example, we are walking through a simple road, but we somehow it happens that we do not notice some certain tree, we do not notice certain car that is parked there. When a poet writes the lines about them, then we get the different perspective that okay, there is a car which is parked here, it is red, it is of red color, and it means this thing, it is metaphor for that. We get to see that this is a different perspective of looking at things. So according to P.V. Shelley, greatest enemy of the person is familiarity, because we do not give much importance if we see the same thing at the daily scale. We do not give much importance to them. But if we are provided the same thing with different perspective, then we would be in awe that okay, this is something different which I have not witnessed before. This is something which I have not experienced before. This is the power of poetry according to P.V. Shelley. And this can't be, you can't say that this is not useful for practical life. The fourth point is poets are unacknowledged legislators of the world. Now what does that mean? Legislators are someone who makes law, who makes certain provisions that these are the things you need to follow, these are the things that you need to do in order to sustain a society in the system. So P.V. Shelley says that it is the poets who writes the poetry, and actually those the lines that are written in the poetry, the message that has been driven through the poetry, that is actually that changes the conscious of the people who are going to read it, and the people who are going to make the laws further away. So you can say that in the base foundation, it is the poets who are creating the poetry, who are indirectly making the laws for the people, because they are here and there indirectly, they are making the laws in the foundation. It is only after the legislatures who are there, the ordinary people who are living there, who studies them, who have the different kind of perspective, and they get to know that we can get with this thing through that ways as well. So poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world, of the society. And actually this is the last line of the defense of poetry. So on the other way, we can say that there is no king, no politician, no SDM, no IS, no IPS who are the legislators. In true words, it is the poets that are the real legislators, which no one knows, but they are. That is the point of P.V. Shelley. After that, the next point, which is the fifth point, is that poets and the divine inspiration. Now, if you remember, I talked about this concept in the Plato video. how Plato criticized this thing that poets write having something divine inspiration comes and then they write. So if they themselves cannot control their own emotions, if they themselves cannot know that what exactly they are writing, so we can't trust them as teachers. This was a criticized idea of Plato towards the poet and poetry. But P.B. Shelley takes it and says that no, this is not any kind of criticism. Actually, it is true. It is the truth, actually, that poets are inspired from some divine inspiration that is out there. And that divine inspiration guides them, gives them something clue about things and matters, and then these poets write. This is actually the truth, which is P.B. Shelley. These all things are said by P.B. Shelley, that this is the truth which is happening. He gives us example like poet as a fading coil. Okay, the inspiration that comes out of it is bright and burning, and the poem is the light that remains after the inspiration has faded. So it says that the divine inspiration come in the poet's mind, it guides them, it motivates them to write something, and when the inspiration goes, the divine inspiration goes, the remain that is left is the poem. So poem is the divine inspiration indirectly. It is just that the poet is writing. So you can't say if something that is not described by the poet afterwards, you can't say that this is not truth. Actually, that has been guided by the divine inspirations. That was the point that was made by P.B. Shelley against Plato's idea that was actually criticism for poets and poetry. Now, moving towards the last point, which was attack towards utilitarianism. So this one I already talked about when I told you that how Thomas Love Peacock was having the ideas of utilitarianism, which says that anything that is useful in the practical day life, that is useful for the society, that has some type of measures which we can measure, that this is the output from this, that is useful in the society, that is essential for the society. But on the other side, he took the example of the poetry, that there is no essential value of that because it doesn't have some measurable outputs. So to which P.B. Shelley takes this point of Thomas Love Peacock, and he says that I don't agree with you. Why? Because poetry is something which is making people feel that life is worth living for. Like, you are saying utilitarianism ideas, you are saying that scientists, engineers, and these are the things which are useful. I can admit that these are useful, but you cannot deny that there is no existence, there is no essentiality of poetry in the life of people. We can admit that organized life can be there, but without feeling that life is no worth living. Because without poetry, one has no capacity to feel things, no capacity to empathize others, no capacity to imagination, no capacity to see things beyond the horizon. So without poetry, you cannot shape the society's thinking. These are all the things, these are all the perspectives that were shaped by P.B. Shelley. And these are important for us to know that what exactly is the basis and foundation of what exactly is going to happen if we do not have the poetry. Though these all things were written in against of the points that were made by Thomas Love Peacock against poetry, having utilitarianism ideas. Utilitarianism is all related to the J.S. Mill and Jeremy Bentham. So, which we will study further. And this is all about P.B. Shelley for today. And in the next video, we are going to start Victorian age critics. This is the final video of Romantic age critics. So, see you there.